Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. The filing deadline for congressional races was on Friday, which means we are now officially in the campaign season. 9 weeks to go to the August primary. Now, we're going to dig into a number of these races in the weeks ahead, but one I do want to start with is the race in Congressional District 24. The seat long held by Frederica Wilson. Now, Wilson announced her retirement recently, and immediately the field to replace her got very crowded. Former County Commissioner Jean Monestine, perennial candidate Rudy Moise, State Senator Shevrin Jones, and County Commissioner Oliver Gilbert announced their plans to run. And then a surprise hit the field. Kendrick Meek Jr., the grandson of former Congresswoman Carrie Meek and the son of former Congressman Kendrick Meek, filed his paperwork to run. So it's a wide open race to see who the Democratic nominee will be. And let's face it, whoever wins the August primary will easily win in November, because Congressional District 24 is far and away the most Democratic district in the state of Florida. This week, I spoke to Oliver Gilbert, who is still a county commissioner, and we cover a couple of county-related issues near the end of our discussion, but we started about why he's running for Congress.
You know, I was born and raised in this area, Jim, and I'm very, 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 very serious about public service. One of the things that I know is that our Congresswoman Frederica Wilson was an extraordinary public servant. Years ago, when I started looking around and started really trying to model myself after different public servants, what they do, how she actually worked with children, how she actually paid attention to things like our board, paid attention to things like workforce training, paid attention to things that actually help build communities. I thought those things were important. I'm running for Congress, first, because she decided not to. Second, because I believe that I have something to offer that maybe other folks don't. You know, I used to be a mayor. I actually had to do something. I had to build something. I had to be responsible for actually creating things for people. When you're a mayor, you actually make sure you make the parks better. That's what I did in Miami-Dade. You actually create economic development. That's what my city needed. You actually needed to make it safer. That's what my city needed. I went on to the county commission. I went on the county commission to do a lot of the same things. I think we need people who can actually get things done and not just talk about them. When I look at DC, when I look at Tallahassee, what I see are people who really are just talking at each other, and no one's really concentrating on getting things done for working people, getting things done for working Americans, getting things done like healthcare, finding ways to close the gap, getting things done like really paying attention to affordability of housing, affordability of groceries, getting things done, actually working at the issue and not just trying to make a point. We have enough politicians making points. We need people to actually try to solve the issue or just make it better. This pretense of like perfection, like there's going to be this thing, this silver bullet that just solves everything. No, that might not be the case, but we can make it better for people. We can make it better for people. We can make choices. Governing is about choices.
Well, let me jump in and ask, because my guess is when I talk to the other candidates who are running, they will say many of the same things. So what differentiates you? You talked about being a mayor, but why are you better suited to deliver on that? And how will you be able to deliver on that if you were elected?
Well, first, I actually had to get stuff done. I mean, I think every politician is elected, I guess, in some respects. But some people have the burden of actually leading and getting stuff done. When you're on a local level, you don't have the benefit of just walking up to microphones and walking up to social media. You actually have to solve the problem. So, and I'll take Miami Gardens for, an example. In 2012, when I become mayor, we're the 7th or 8th most dangerous city, somewhere up there on the list. There's no businesses opening, everything's going to crap. And what I say is, hey, when I'm done, we're going to be an all-American city. And people laughed at me. They literally laughed at me. My last year in office, we became an all-American city. We were no longer in the top 200 in most dangerous cities in America. There was economic development everywhere. I think people need people who actually get it done. I'm not going to, cast any negative aspersions on any of my opponents. What I'll say is this. It's been my job to actually get things done for people. First in Miami Gardens, and then in the county. I have a history of actually getting things done. How do I get it done? I work at the issue. And I find ways to actually work with people on the issues. Right now, we have people arguing about things like healthcare. Listen, we should all be able to concede that people shouldn't be afraid to go to the doctor because of a bill. Well, this is the richest country in the history of the world. We should all be able to concede that the healthcare should be a right. How do we make it accessible to everyone? We should all be able to concede that kids should, yes, get their lunch when they're in school because they can't learn if they're hungry. We should all be able to concede that if there are people who are with us who can't afford to eat, we should be providing food and food assistance. These aren't controversial things. If you walked out there and you talked to most people in District 24, they wouldn't say, oh yeah, let the kid go hungry. Oh yeah, don't let the old man go to the doctor. They wouldn't say any of those things, but they wouldn't say it in my district and they wouldn't say it in most districts. Those are common American values.
We've seen in the last election in 24 a growing number of African Americans voting for Donald Trump, speaking particularly to black men who felt that the Democratic Party wasn't really their party or wasn't doing anything for them. I'm curious, as you watched all of that unfold in 24 and in the 2 years since, why do you think that was the case, that Donald Trump did so well or did better than in previously with black men?
Well, I don't think Donald Trump has been a good president for anyone except for billionaires. So whether it's black men, white working class men, white women, black women, Hispanics, I don't think he's been a good president for anyone except for billionaires. There are a select class of people who he has been a great president for, those are billionaires. Everybody else is kind of taking it on the chin right now. So with regard to black men, you're right. I used to sit in the barbershop with my son because obviously I don't get haircuts like that anymore. And I would hear the conversations and I would always push back because what I found was people were listening through their dissatisfaction and listening through their anger and not listening for actual answers. So when it might sound good, the rhetoric might sound good, but when you listen to actually the things that he said, hey, how much worse can you do? Well, now we know we don't have the Voting Rights Act. But now we know that there was a lot worse that could happen. So part of the reason why I think that it probably should change this time is because he answered that question for us. He asked the question, hey, blacks, how much worse could you do? Why not try me? And then some of them tried him and it got substantially worse. Black unemployment up, black women out of the workforce, the federal workforce. I mean, those are things that are tangible. Those are households, yeah. Those are households of people who just trying to make it by, just trying to make do. Those are households. And that's just the issues that are specific to African Americans. Listen, when you start talking about healthcare, food insecurity, gas prices, those things affect all Americans and they affect us too. How much worse could it get? It got substantially worse. Everything about his presidency got worse. So maybe if people felt like they wanted to experiment and they wanted to try Donald Trump, they tried it. How did that turn out? How is that working for you right now?
I'm curious as to your thoughts as we continue in this war with Iran. Was this a good choice, a good option? Did this make sense to you?
Well, what doesn't make sense is that we're at war and everyone calls it a war, but we didn't go to Congress to have a declaration of war. How about this? It's a novel idea for the president and for the rest of the country. There's a constitution. Let's just read it and just try to do what it says. If you're going to put American lives and American treasure at risk by way of declaring war, take it to the people, take it to their representatives and explain it to us. Explain it to us. Explain why it's an imminent threat. Explain what the plan is. Look, it's before we get to the idea of whether the war is right, the fact that we are at war and Congress has not voted to declare war should be a problem. We should throw around terms like constitutional crisis. We literally live in a constitutional crisis. We literally live in a constitutional crisis. We live with a president who believes that he is a king, because that's what kings did. Kings could just send their navy. They could just send their army, and they could just invade people because they thought so. We created a country with a safeguard that did not allow that, and we are now ignoring the safeguard. I would prefer we actually have the conversation in Congress about whether we should be at war. Let's hear all the evidence, let all the American people hear all the arguments, and then we actually make the determination. I don't believe in going to war without us actually declaring war in Congress.
Was it a mistake to go in and snatch Nicolas Maduro?
I don't think it was a mistake, no. But I don't think that's war either.
Last question I do want to raise with you is that I do believe that we may finally get a vote and a final resolution on the Miami Center for Mental Health and Recovery at this next commission meeting. I know you've spoken out in support of it and recast it in a lot of ways, which is that if this is something worth doing, we should do it. And we should figure out how to make that work financially. And the first 2 to 3 years are already paid for, but there's been this constant drumbeat by some on the dais that says that, well, unless we can guarantee where the funding is going to come from 5 years and 10 years from now, we shouldn't start the process now of actually helping people who are mentally ill. What do you think is going to happen at this next commission meeting?
And my hope is that it's going to be presented, and we're going to pass it, and we're going to finally open this building and start helping people with it. Listen, I appreciate that everyone has opinions about this stuff, but the idea that we need to have a plan for this, we don't do that for anything else. They're trying to make this building pay for itself in a way that we don't do for any other service. If you basically boil it down to, and listen, this might have started with the people who initially organized it. They started the conversation with the idea that it would pay for itself. I would have never done that. I would have said, we have this building because we have people who are being treated for mental illness in our jails and in Jackson, and we can do better for them. This is how we do better. And then let's just do it. I don't think we've made this so much more complicated than it needed to be. This is a service. We don't ask services to pay for themselves. Right now, the argument around this, when you boil it down to its core, what you're saying is people who are experiencing mental health crisis, we should find a way to make helping them pay for itself. And that's not true. Right now, our police are servicing these folks, our jails, some in Jackson. Whatever we can do to help, we need to do. We need to just open the building.
Now, as you heard at the end of our discussion, the Miami Center for Mental Health and Recovery is expected to be on the commission agenda next week. I'll have an update on the latest at the end of the show. But up next, I speak to former State Senator Annette Taddeo, who is running statewide to be Florida's next Chief Financial Officer. Stay with us. Welcome back. In addition to local races and county races and congressional races, there are also some very important statewide races that will be on the ballot this year. And while the media tends to focus on the candidates running to be their next governor or senator, we are also electing an attorney general, an agriculture commissioner, and a chief financial officer. These are critically important positions that do not get the attention they deserve. Take the CFO position. That is basically the state's watchdog on spending, as well as overseeing the insurance industry. Former State Senator Annette Taddeo is running to be the Democratic nominee for Chief Financial Officer, and I spoke to her last week.
Jim, at this point, what is going on in not just our country, but our state, where people are truly suffering and not being able to afford their homes, and in particular in Florida, with the insurance crisis, something that I fought in Tallahassee for 5 years, sitting on the Banking and Insurance Committee, as a matter of fact, leading that fight against the insurance companies. I really felt that this is not the time to stand on the sidelines. This is the time to fight and to have a voice and a balance on our cabinet, something we haven't had for many years.
So, people may not fully understand exactly what the chief financial officer's role is or why you would bring up insurance as part of that. Explain the link and the role that the chief financial officer plays in different areas, particularly as it comes to insurance.
Look, the chief financial officer in a very rudimentary way is the watchdog for Floridians. It's supposed to be, I should say, the watchdog. And what we currently have is a lapdog for the governor, and that is unacceptable. And one of the things of the many things, it deals with the Financial Services Department for the state of Florida. So lots of different things fall under that. But one of the very important ones is insurance and oversight over resources and audits and things like that. But I can tell you, when it comes to insurance, we have had now for decades in Tallahassee the electeds doing the bidding for the insurance companies. And you can follow the money. You can see all the contributions. We have not had somebody that's truly going to be there to look out for the homeowners. We even gave them a $3 billion bailout while I was there. And all I asked, I remember I had an amendment and I said, hey, just give 5%, a tiny percentage to the homeowners out of this bailout. No. They do not want to take care of the homeowners and the ones actually, many of them not being able to keep a roof over their head because they can't afford the insurance premiums.
Well, I think the argument, the pushback to what you're saying is that there does seem to be more insurance carriers now entering the market, that some of the reforms that were put out several years ago, back when you were in the legislature, they take time to develop. And we've seen what I know Republicans would argue is a stabilization, at least, of insurance rates in Florida. What's your reaction to that?
First of all, tell that to the homeowners whose insurance doubled, then tripled, and who, if they get hit by anything now, really have a hard time getting insurance companies to pay for your damage. The insurance company now gets to pick who does your repairs, which is in itself a conflict of interest. There is so much that I could go into of the many issues with that. And I will tell you, I am not some left of the left that believes that, the government is the solution for everything. I actually was pretty moderate in my time in the legislature, and many times even voted with DeSantis to the shock of many. But the point is, we can't be irresponsible, Jim, when it comes to really getting a balance. And we don't have a balance. And we don't have a balance when all you do is take away the rights of homeowners to, when they need the insurance, get their repairs, get paid. They put you through thick and thin, and now they have made it even more difficult for you to fight them. And the consumer person that is supposed to help the consumers is directly under the CFO.
There was somebody who was in this race who appeared to have been recruited in part by the chair of the state Democratic Party, Nikki Fried. That person is Earl Ford. He has been running for the position of chief financial officer. And I want you to address why you decided to get in the race when there was another candidate in it, and also the concern that some have expressed. Earl Ford is an African American, that there needed to be better representation for a statewide ballot measure. And some are looking at, why are you jumping into a race in which there was already a candidate, let alone an African American candidate?
I had a conversation. I don't know Mr. Ford. I had a conversation with him to let him know that this decision-making process was actually well before he ever popped up. I know that we definitely, I know that the polling that was independently done by Ruth Liss and the process of talking with me about getting in this race, which showed that I start out the race ahead by 1.5 points of the incumbent, unelected incumbent, I might add. All of these things went on well before his name even came up. And I can tell you that this decision was made before he got in the race. And I am in no way, I welcome democracy. I welcome people getting in the race. And Jim, when I won my special election in Senate District 40, I was told by the party that not to run, that they were looking for someone else. That's not the case this time, but I will tell you that I know that we will succeed in the primary, and we're not really concerned. We know that we need somebody that understands the issues, that has been in Tallahassee fighting for consumers, fighting for Floridians, and I have never stopped fighting. And I am in this race because I am not done fighting for the people of Florida.
The current chief financial officer, who you correctly note was appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis, is Blazing Gallia, a former state senator, who then moved into that position when the last CFO ran and won a seat in Congress. So I guess, looking at Blazing Gallia as the likely matchup that you would face in November, he has made or tried to make a name for himself as someone who has diligently gone around the state and challenged local governments at the county and city level about whether or not they have had excessive spending. We've done reporting on this show to sort of look at some of the ways he's done that in Broward, and there are concerns with the way he's doing this. But his tenure seems to be directed at trying to get at waste, fraud, and abuse. Where do you think he's gone wrong in that mission?
Well, first of all, if he really wants to get into waste, fraud, and abuse, then why isn't he doing his job? Like I said, he is a lapdog for the governor, not a watchdog that Floridians deserve. This should not be about going after blue cities or blue counties versus red counties. The people suffering in Florida, they're both Republican, Democrat, and independent. And you need that independent voice sitting in that position. Why hasn't he gone after the part of his job, which is to audit no bid contracts like Alligator Alcatraz? Why hasn't he looked into that? That is in statute. That is actually something he should be looking at. $1 million a day, almost $1 million for porta potties. I mean, and then you go and you look at the contributions of some of these vendors with these no bid contracts for Alligator Alcatraz. It's actual donors that have given both to DeSantis and to Blazing Gallia. In addition to that, there is so much more we should be looking at, like Hope Florida, money that was supposed to go to sick kids. And where did it go? To campaign ads. If there isn't something wrong with that, I don't know what do they define as wrong. That is wrong, and we should be looking into it, not just from the courts, but also from the money perspective of the watchdog of Floridians.
We'll be right back. Welcome back. Before we go, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the Miami-Dade County Commission is expected to finally vote on opening the Miami Center for Mental Health and Recovery next week. This project was promised to voters back in 2004, and the county has already spent more than $50 million renovating the building that would house it. Those renovations were completed 2 years ago, but the building is just sitting empty, helping no one. County Commission Chairman Anthony Rodriguez had been blocking the center from coming up for a vote, but last month Rodriguez grudgingly agreed to let the vote proceed. But he issued one final demand. He wanted the head of Jackson Health to review the proposal and write a report. Well, we now have that report, with Jackson signing off on the proposal with a couple of relatively small recommendations to make sure it is properly staffed. Now, we'll be sure to keep you posted on what the commission does. Well, that's all the time we have today. If you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to contact me at jdefede@cbs.com. I do enjoy hearing from you. Thanks again for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.